You already know something is wrong. You can feel it. But every time you try to name it, the ground shifts. You start explaining what happened, and somehow you end up apologizing for how you experienced it. That is not a disagreement. That is gaslighting. And it is more specific than most people realize. Gaslighting gets used to describe a lot of things right now. Lying, being dismissive, someone not listening to you. But those things, as painful as they are not gaslighting. Gaslighting is a specific pattern, and that distinction matters. When the word covers everything, the actual behavior becomes harder to see. And when it becomes harder to see, it becomes harder to name. And when you cannot name it, you keep thinking the problem is you. So here is what gaslighting actually is. Researchers define it as a sustained pattern of behavior, not a single incident, where one person consistently works to undermine another person's confidence in their own perceptions. It happens through denial, through reframing, through minimizing, through repetition. The American Psychological Association describes it as manipulation intended to make the target question their sense of reality. Not just once, over time. That word, sustained, matters. Because gaslighting is a process, not an event. And that process needs certain conditions to work. There has to be a relationship with some level of trust. The behavior has to repeat. And you have to be invested enough in the relationship to keep trying to make sense of what is happening. That is why gaslighting almost never happens with strangers. It happens in families, in relationships, at work. Places where you have a reason to stay and a reason to keep trying to figure it out. Now, 3 things get confused with gaslighting, and it helps to pull them apart. A disagreement is when 2 people see something differently and both engage with that difference. Your reality is being contested in a disagreement, but it is not being erased. The other person acknowledges your perspective exists, even if they reject it. Memory variance is something else entirely. Human memory is not a recording. It is reconstructive. 2 people who experience the same event will often remember it differently, sometimes substantially. That is not manipulation. That is how memory works. The difference is that in normal memory variance, neither person uses the discrepancy as evidence that the other person is unstable or dishonest. Manipulation is broader than gaslighting. It covers any behavior designed to influence someone by bypassing their honest judgment. Gaslighting is one form of manipulation, specifically the form that targets your perception of reality itself. It is one of the more systematic forms because it does not just try to change what you do. It tries to change what you trust about your own mind. Gaslighting also does not happen in a vacuum. It relies on a power imbalance. That imbalance does not have to be extreme. It just has to be enough that you have reason to defer or doubt or stay. In families, it often runs along generational lines. A parent who repeatedly denies saying something you clearly remember until you stop trusting what you remember. In workplaces, a manager who rewrites the history of a conversation puts you in a position where your account is structurally less credible than theirs. In relationships, the imbalance can be emotional, where one person's distress consistently overrides the other's. Power does not cause gaslighting, but it creates the conditions where gaslighting is more likely to succeed and more likely to go unnamed. Here is the part that took me the longest to understand. Your brain has 2 basic modes for processing information. One is fast and automatic. It runs in the background, handles your moment-to-moment responses, and operates mostly outside your awareness. The other is slow and deliberate. It engages when you need to consciously reason through something. Most of daily life runs on the fast, automatic mode. It is efficient. It recognizes patterns. It responds to familiar people and situations without making you stop and think. Gaslighting works on that automatic system. When someone repeatedly tells you that your memory is wrong, that you are too sensitive, that things did not happen the way you remember, your automatic system starts to incorporate that as a pattern. You begin to doubt yourself before your slower, analytical thinking even has a chance to engage. By the time you try to reason through what happened, the confusion is already there. The ground has already shifted. This is not a flaw in you. It is a feature of how the brain processes repeated information from people it has reason to trust. The part of your brain designed to catch this is the last one to get the information. That is why you are not broken for not seeing it sooner. That is why intelligent, perceptive people stay in these dynamics far longer than anyone on the outside understands. It is not about intelligence. It is about how the pattern gets in before the recognition does. The starting point for everything that comes after this, every tool, every technique, every path forward, is understanding that. Not as an excuse, as a fact. You were not failing to pay attention. The mechanism was working exactly as designed against you.